Welcome everybody to another of a RocGrowth Candids event. My name is Alex Saposochny, and today we have with us Zach Stanley, who is a 28-year-old entrepreneur out of Rochester, New York. Actually, by the way, that by itself almost deserves some applause. He started his, and feel free to applaud. He started his company when he was 25. He has a great story, both in terms of what inspired him to begin this company, Star Fantasy Leagues, as well as what are the lessons he's been learning during this 2.5, 3-year journey. And it's been a very fast journey. About a year ago, they only had 6 people working for them. Now they have 18 and they're hiring. So I suppose if anybody here wants a job, they should probably talk to you right after.
Yeah, no, we've never been contacted at all in the past couple of months.
So welcome, and maybe just start off by telling us what is Star Fantasy Leagues today? What
Sure.
Is your company?
So at starfantasyleagues.com, we've built a platform that allows people to play daily, weekly, and season-long games, fantasy sports games for real money online. So a season-long game would be the traditional one that we've all played in our homes now and then amongst friends. I'm sure a lot of us have played it. And daily is a fast-growing aspect of the industry where you can play one team, one game every day for real money and get those payouts at the end of the night. So I'm guessing that some of you have seen sites like ESPN, commercials on ESPN from DraftKings and FanDuel, people talking about these sites where daily fantasy sports is growing. It's absolutely huge. A lot of people playing NFL on Sundays and all that stuff. But one of our big differentiators is that at Star Fantasy Leagues, we do a B2B side of the business. So different companies like casinos, sports books, even hotels and airlines, oddly enough, that want a fantasy sports product connected to their business, we built a platform that provides that for them.
Okay. Well, and one of the things I found really interesting when we spoke a little bit beforehand is the story of what led you to start this company and at this young age. And can you tell us a little bit about what led into starting this company?
Sure. So I started playing fantasy sports when I was like 11 or 12. I played on every single site that was available on the internet. I knew what I liked, what I didn't like, what interested me, and what I thought other players would be interested in, and what I thought was missing from the industry as a whole. So I also started playing online poker when I was like 16. My brother had an online poker account that had about $30 in it. I turned that into $1,600, and then I turned it into tens of thousands of dollars. And I used some of that money to cover college expenses and used a lot of it on girlfriend expenses. But what happened to be was that when daily fantasy sports, which is a big part of our company, started popping up in like 2008 or so, the entire setup of it was very comparable to poker. So having that background in fantasy sports, having played all those different season-long sites and games, and then having the experience in daily fantasy and poker, it all mixed really well together because the poker lobby is actually very similar to a daily fantasy sports lobby, just how it's set up. So a few years, actually probably 3.5 years into college, I found out that my father had lung cancer. He called me. I was driving down the hill in Ithaca. I went to Ithaca College for business marketing, and I was driving down the hill, and I got a call from him. And I had heard voicemails from him a couple of times, and his voice sounded weird, so I called him back, and he told me. And that process was extremely painful, obviously. Hearing the news was extremely painful, and the following months, I felt like I changed a lot. I felt like I was responsible. I wanted to bring on the responsibility and strength for my family. I wanted to be there for my family. I wanted to help my family in any way that I could, and I wanted to help him in any way that I could, so that the timeline of me being home was good, that I was able to be there for him After roughly a 1.5-year battle, he passed away. And with what he left behind for my brother and I mean, my brother is just as big of a fantasy sports nut as I am. And given how things were functioning in the daily fantasy industry, how things were transitioning, we felt like there was a legitimate opportunity for us to enter it with some of the funds that he had left behind for us. So that's what we did.
Well, and I also found very interesting what you had talked about with regard to your family history. So both your grandfather had started a company in 1951, and your father had some kind of other ambitions in life, but he went into the family business.
Yeah. My dad went to Colgate, and he was accepted to the Wharton School, and he wanted to be an attorney. And my grandfather kind of ushered him back into the family business. And it wasn't necessarily something that he wanted to do. It wasn't what lined up with his ambitions, but it was something that, from the words and from the fact that it was his family, that he felt obligated to do. And so he did go back into it. But I knew the story, and I knew that, things that he said over time, that he felt that he kind of felt like he missed out on what he really wanted to do. And he encouraged me throughout my childhood and into my early adulthood that I not follow in his footsteps, not necessarily because it would be a bad thing or because it wasn't a good company or anything like that, but because if it really wasn't my thing and I knew that, then I should go in the direction that I wanted to go in.
One of the things that really struck me, actually, when you and I spoke, was this statistic that, in fact, about 25% of all technology founders lost a parent at a young age. And to what extent do you think, having gone through that experience, what role did it play for you to kind of take this risk and start this company?
Well, it's like I talked about with the responsibility that I felt for my family and wanting to have that strength, and I didn't have it. Before everything happened, before I got the news, I wanted to have that strength. I wanted it to be there, and it wasn't there yet. But I needed to make do, and hopefully, as I went along, I felt like that strength would kind of show up. And losing somebody, you don't really. I know, like, especially cancer. I'm sure there's so many people in this room that have lost somebody that they know, that they cared about, that they loved, to it. But when it's somebody as close as your father, it's extremely difficult. But there was a numbness that came with it. There was something to it that, especially early on, which isn't necessarily good, but there was a numbness that came to it that made me kind of like a shield, not a protective shield, but like a shield to anything that brought about a feeling of weakness or a feeling of tears. Just for that point in time, I had a lot of tears after the fact and a lot of tears since then. But when something like that happens, you kind of put yourself in a different mentality, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. I gave a speech in front of, for a memorial service in front of my father's coworkers, people that knew him, friends, family, something that I never would have done previously in that situation. But it was kind of like something was overtaking. It was something something inside me that was making it easier. And a year ago, I gave a speech at our industry awards in front of 300 people, enormous and rapidly growing industry, and talked to them about how I felt about the industry, about how I felt where it was going. And it was scary, obviously. It was anxiety-provoking. It was something that I hadn't done before. But just to think about in my head what I'd been through and things that had happened previously and what I saw and who my dad was and what he lived for, it kind of made the whole thing a lot easier for me.
So I was actually also speaking to your mother, because she's in the audience.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart, huh?
She is, and she was telling me that one of the banes of her existence when you were a teenager was that you would stay up very late at night, and she would always go in there, and you were constantly obsessed, anything to do with sports and tracking things. I mean, this really is kind of the most passionate thing you probably, other than maybe poker, that you've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, people in my company will attest that some mornings I'll come in at 9:30 or 10 because I've been watching overtime games till 2 or 2:30 in the morning. But then I'll stay a little bit later, of course. But yeah, I mean, you know, she didn't know all the poker I was playing at the time. I tried to keep that hidden. But yeah, no, I mean, I was up a lot. I mean, it's been a passion of mine forever. I love sports. I love everything that goes into sports. I'm a huge player. Even now, even owning my own company, I play on other sites. I actually won a trip to Vegas recently to play in a big NBA tournament, a big VIP tournament in March that I'm really excited about. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it, is that whatever you do, whatever you want to create, whatever you want to build, passion is so influenced by it. And if you don't have that, then it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter the hours that you say you put in, or the money that you put into it. If you're not waking up thirsting, and if you're not going to bed thinking about it, and you know, when people talk to me about, you know, working 9 or 10 or 11 hours or whatever during the day, I know that there's hours that I'm working that I'm not even thinking about, because I'm just thinking about it all the time.
So one of the other things I found interesting about your background is this whole idea of being a really good poker player. And I know that I've heard a number of venture capitalists and tech entrepreneurs, which are well known, talk about the mentality, essentially, that you're kind of anteing up, seeing what hand you're dealt, trying to learn from it, then kind of, you know, going potentially all in on big ideas. Are there any other skills you learned as a poker player? Are there ideas about strategies that you learned as a poker player that you think you're applying?
I mean, both the challenges in poker and fantasy sports are very similar. They're problem solving. You're solving problems all the time. You're thinking about what the other person's thinking about, and what your next move should be. But I guess, like, I got a lot of joy out of that, a lot of joy out of beating people, of coming out first in a tournament with 700 people and just being like, yeah, I beat everyone, and how good that made me feel. But there was also something to it, I think, for me personally, where I was behind a screen, where I was playing fantasy sports in my room, I was playing poker in my room. That's what I was doing all the time. I would wake up and I would think about the lineup that I was going to build for that day, and I was thinking about the tournaments that I was going to join and how much, you know, money I could potentially make. Oddly enough, it wasn't really about the money that much, just because I wanted to kick people's ass. That was like a big thing for me, because like I saw people in tournaments that I saw every day playing huge money, and I knew their styles, I knew what they did, and I really wanted to beat them. That was really like the glory for me. But I think dealing with you know, a few of the things that I've gone through, and being able to put myself out there more, and just and talk to people and hire people, and talk to them about, you know, how our company functions, all the things that go into running a company, and engaging people. It's different. It's different from, I mean, there's the challenges, and I think the challenges of winning in poker and fantasy sports have helped me in those types of challenges. But having the face-to-face, having the discussions with people, it's a different beast. And I, for one, in terms of my character and personal development, am really glad that I was, I mean, out of tragedy, obviously, but to have this opportunity has been amazing.
So you're about 2.5 years into this entrepreneurial journey with your company. What have been the things that have really surprised you in terms of challenges you didn't expect?
Well, initially we started, when I started, I didn't really know, you know, what was going on. I mean, I knew what I wanted to build, I knew what I wanted it to look like, but I didn't know how to run it properly. And I knew that. And when I was involved initially, I thought that was a good thing that I didn't know that, so I knew how to address it. And what I did was I hired an agency initially to build the foundation of Star Fantasy League so that I could get a grip on the entire industry, and I don't mean the fantasy industry, I mean the tech industry, and how it all works, so that later on I could transfer people into an office and build everything in-house based on the groundwork that was laid with that initial company. And it completely flopped. I mean, it was terrible. And you are forced, especially at a young age, in this type of situation, to learn a lot of things. And that's the reason that so many initial ventures flop. I mean, it happens all the time. You have young people getting involved, and they don't really know exactly what they need to do. They know what they want to do, but they don't know exactly what they need to do. And the job that this agency did was far subpar, and we took everybody in-house, and we did have some decent code there. We did have some decent stuff to work with, so it wasn't a total loss, but building out the team and all the experiences that I had from that, quote-unquote failure, I was lucky enough to be able to bounce back from that initial failure, and it was a failure. But to be able to have the backing and find the people to put together the right team was how I was able to bounce back from it. I mean, the importance overall of having the right people. I mean, when you're building something, it doesn't matter how passionate you are about it, which is huge, as I said, but or the knowledge that you have of it. If you don't know or don't have somebody in place that does know how to hire the right people, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't have a group of people that says, we have one goal. And that comes from the top down. That comes from everybody that is, every layer, that they have to say, what you're doing is about the success of the company. What you're doing is about making sure that we progress and that we follow not a guideline that's on paper, but a guideline that's in your mind and in your heart, that we all want this to be successful. And if you don't have somebody like that, then you have a problem, and it's going to become contagious within your entire organization. If you have a friend that you hire that isn't great, that maybe they're even talented at their job, but they are kind of to use a word, a cancer to the organization. They cause problems for everybody. They don't treat people well. You can't have that, and it can't go on forever. You can't let it go on, because if you let it go on, everybody's going to be infected by it, and you're going to be in trouble.
Well, and one of the things that I know you talk about is it's, of course, very important to have trust in an organization, but you also need to have a very open environment, which was interesting. I mean, Jack Welch, one of his kind of big four tenets that he talks about a lot in GE is that he thinks that there's far too little ability to be very honest in organizations. And everybody, especially in a smaller team, they don't want to offend people, they want to get along, and they're sort of willing to kind of turn away and not confront people. But you have a different environment than that.
Yeah, I mean, there are companies here in Rochester, I'm sure some of us work for them, where we are behind a desk all day and we don't really have to interact with customers at all, or clients at all, yet we have to wear a suit like we're at a convention or that we're in a dinner meeting or something like that. And that's, I mean, we're talking about software developers, the guys that need to be fueled by creativity, that need to harness their skills every day and need to challenge themselves. So why are we telling them that they have a dress code? I mean, they're the exact opposite of that type of person. I mean, I have a little mini basketball hoop on my door. We have a pool table in our office. We have TVs with SportsCenter on every day, because that's the type of environment that we want it to be in. We want people to feel like themselves and feel like when they're interacting with each other and they're trying to figure out problems, that they are themselves. We hire people that we feel like have a firm understanding of how they should operate, and if we feel that way and we want to hire them, then we give them that road. We give them that ability to be themselves, because we know that it's much easier to feel accepting when you don't feel like your entire life is a suit. So. That's how we kind of run things.
What have been your observations about what it is that really makes a distinctive, good, innovative product or service?
Well, a couple months ago, I started talking about this thing called PI within our company, which is passion, innovation, and execution. And like I said before, you're nothing without passion, and that's the same for everybody in your company. Like when I hire somebody, it's not do you like fantasy sports, and they say, honestly, I have no idea what fantasy sports are. I'm not like, all right, get the hell out. That's not how I approach things. It's, do you have an energy and a thirst for, and it's easy to get that read on somebody if you're intuitive about it. Do you have a thirst to learn, and for our developers, do you like learning new technologies? Do you go home and study books? Do you go home and think about problem solving? I mean, are you bred to solve problems? And we ask them those types of questions through the whole thing. So that's a very big deal for us.
So being a very young leader now of, I guess, 17 other people, right? You're probably the 18th. Most of which I'm thinking are probably younger than you, but still, you're very young for a leader. What's your advice for other kind of 20-somethings running a company?
I think it kind of draws back to what I said, but I know you said trust because we've talked about that. But in a way, your employees need to be an extension of you. I mean, if you're not providing the example and living by the things that you say are what's going to work, then you're not going to get anywhere. And you need to build a foundation of trust within your company. I mean, you can sacrifice a 1A talent for a 1B talent if you're going to get that element of trust. If you're gonna have people that say, I want to be a part of this thing. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you dead on what I think. And that's also something, is that if you are, especially in the world the way it is now, if you're somebody that says, this is what I say and this is how it's going to be and this is my thought on things, and you need to kind of follow suit, then you're going to have a major issue. You're going to have a major problem by not saying to people that are under you, what do you think? And what is your thought? And please be candid with me and tell me everything that you feel about this situation. And if you have the right people, they're not going to talk out of line. They're not going to say that their thoughts are more important than anybody else, because they know that there will be people above them that are making the final decision. But if you don't have people under you that are telling you their thoughts and what they believe in every problem that you have, eventually you're going to miss something, and you're going to miss something important.
So recently you received an investment last fall, a sizable investment. You're obviously dealing with scaling. You mentioned before that you're hiring for anyone that's interested. And it's a very fast-paced industry that you're in. What are the key challenges? What are over the next year or two that you're looking to overcome?
Well, we have a critical decision to make within our company. FanDuel, whether ESPN or somebody major enters the market, FanDuel and DraftKings are not going to be the be-all, the end-all. This is an industry in which 41 million people are playing, and 10 to 15% of them right now are playing daily fantasy sports. FanDuel and DraftKings spent a lot of money with teams on commercials in the past year, exposing people to daily fantasy sports, but there's still a lot of room, and there's a lot of room for 1, 2, or 3 more major players. But right now, with what we're doing and the investment that we initially got, we're having a ton of success with companies that want to have their own product. I mean, even land-based casinos, we've come up with an idea for fantasy sports books, so that as potential online gaming regulation evolves over the course of time, different land-based casinos have themselves set up with the fantasy sports products with TVs where they can interact with every game, so that if sports betting potentially comes legal, they're way ahead of the curve and they have loyalty in that case. So we're looking at a lot of different things, and The B2B opportunities are enormous. The companies that we're talking to are huge, and we're really excited about it. That being said, when I initially started this company, and my initial thoughts of the company was constantly innovating, which we'll keep doing, but building a standalone brand that people love. I mean, fantasy sports is an escape, right? People do it because they want to engage with friends, obviously, and it's a hell of a lot of fun yelling back and forth. But a lot of the issues that they have going on that they deal with every day, it allows them to kind of take a break from it and do something fun. So the customer-facing product is very important to me. And as much as we do B2B, we're going to maintain that customer-facing product. However, in the conversations that we've been having recently, there's the potential that we do get the kind of investment that rivals FanDuel and DraftKings. And so at that point, we're going to be forced with a decision, whether we can maintain our B2B and still get that investment for the B2C, or whether we'd have to give up the B2B and go B2C. So those are a couple of the elements that we're really contemplating right now.
Has Rochester been a good place for you to grow this, and and how is Rochester as a place to scale a company?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking with somebody earlier tonight, actually, who's attending this event. And she was just talking about how quickly in other cities companies flip each other and flip to major corporations, and how quickly that can happen. And all of a sudden, you don't know anything about them anymore. And how, I mean, when we're talking about New York, we're talking about Boston, we're talking about LA, how many different companies there are there thirsting for exposure and trying to say, hey, I have this really sexy business, it's awesome, and I want to tell people about it. Who's going to put me on paper? And here, when I talk to people, hey, we're over in Village Gate, they're doing some really cool stuff over there. We're really excited about Rochester and the companies that are opening up there and the software and the people that we're able to work with from RIT. There's much more of an excitement about it, and it has given us much more exposure.
Excellent. So quite a few of the people here are already in startups, are already entrepreneurs, but there are people here I know from having spoken to them that are thinking about it. What's your parting advice for people thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, especially maybe people who are 20s or 30s?
It's a major risk. Everybody in here knows that. It's hard as hell. It's a pain in the ass. But don't, if you see an opportunity right now, if you see that you can do something that you think could work, just don't let it pass. Because if your circumstances, and a lot of us, I know there's people of all different age categories in here right now. But I know that there's a lot of us that out there that wish that they could do certain things, that wish that they got a job that they wanted that was fine, and they have a family, and they don't have the time. They don't have the time to put forth the effort to live that dream that they might have, or they might have had 15 years ago. So if you have an opportunity to dedicate yourself to something and take that risk, then just don't be afraid to. I think that's the overall message.
Excellent. Well, Zach, Stanley, thank you very much. Congratulations on all your success, and we wish you much more, and thank you for coming out and speaking to us.